Welcome back. Preparation when you're raising goats is so important. You never want to go out to your barn and find a sick goat and not have the supplies on hand to help them. So today I want to talk about the top 10 items that all goat owners should have in their medicine cabinet at all times. And I'm going to start with supplies. And the first thing is a weight tape. When you're giving your goats medications, you want to dose based on their weight. You want to make sure that you are giving them the correct dosage. And this weight tape will help you easily determine how much your goat weighs simply by wrapping it around them and reading the tape. These weight tapes are pretty accurate, and you can feel safe dosing your goats based on this weight alone. The next thing you should have on hand in your cabinet is a thermometer. Whenever you notice a goat feeling sick, acting off, or looking sick, you want to know their temperature because it will help determine what it might be. If you're dealing with a high temperature, it might be a bacterial or viral infection. A low temperature could mean a rumen disruption or that their body is shutting down and you need to act really quickly. This is just a digital thermometer that you can get at any old drugstore. Keep it with your goat supplies at all times. Next, you want to have syringes and needles on hand. Sterile ones you can reuse. If you're doing oral medications, you can just wash them and reuse them. If you are giving injections, make sure they're sterile. You should have a couple different sizes, large ones for drenching, smaller ones for injecting a small or drenching a smaller amount. You also want to keep a couple different types of needles on hand. 18 to 20 gauge is the most common. Some medications will require a larger needle like the 18, but 20 is good for most and it will keep the pain to a minimum. Next is the Fortified B complex. I talked about this in a previous video, so if you haven't watched that, go ahead and check that out on our channel, and you can find out why you need to keep B vitamins on hand at all times for your goats, because it is a super important vitamin for them. Next is a product called NutriDrench. I use this anytime I see a goat feeling sick or stressed. It just supports them and gives them the extra nutrition they need. I give this to anemic goats, I give it to newborn kids, I give it to mothers who have just given birth. Anytime your goat would be extra stressed or needs extra nutrition, I give NutriDrench, and it is really helpful in supporting them and giving them what they need. You also should have a good general antibiotic on hand, one that is a broad spectrum that can treat a variety of different disorders and illnesses. The one I recommend is Biomycin. It is an oxytetracycline. There are others, and you can get penicillin, but Oxytet and Biomycin is one of the best for goats because they metabolize it easier and it is more of a no-sting formula. You also need to have dewormers on hand, and I suggest having a variety of them so that you can treat different worms and different parasites, and it'll also help with resistance. Different medications have built up different resistances in different areas. So I have a lot of different wormers. The most used one I use is Ivomec, and it works in my area really well for almost all different types of internal parasites. You may also want to have a Poron one for external parasites. This is Safeguard and Valbasin, which are sometimes called the white wormers. And while Safeguard especially has a lot of resistance built up, it does have its place. Especially if you live in an area with a lot of white-tailed deer and you maybe deal with meningeal worm, which is a worm that lives in their spinal column. Safeguard does work for that one. I also have my herbal deworming powder, which I use to prevent worms from occurring. It helps to create an inhospitable environment in your goats, and this is a great natural way to prevent worms in your herd to start with. Another thing that you should keep on hand is probiotics. This is Probios, and I use it anytime a goat is sick and has finished any sort of antibacterial or antibiotics to help repopulate the gut flora. Anytime their rumen has been compromised with something like bloat or enterotoxemia, this would be a good thing to give. I also give probiotics to newborn kids at 3 days old to help jumpstart their rumen. So it's really useful in making sure that their rumen is functional and healthy. This is betadine. You can also use iodine, which is an antiseptic. It's great for disinfecting wounds if you have an injury or a cut, or if you are disbudding or castrating. I also use it to dip the umbilical cord in for newborn kids. You can dip hooves in, anything that needs to be disinfected. You want to have something like this on hand to prevent infections from starting in the first place. And finally, copper. Goats need copper, and most of the time, loose minerals don't cut it. So unless you live in an area that is not deficient in copper for your soil, you are going to have to give copper boluses, which are these little pills, to your goats at least a few times a year. Copper deficiency can cause a lot of problems in your herd, including a high parasite load and coat issues and reproductive issues. So having copper on hand and making sure you use it every few months is important. So that is the top 10 items in my goat medicine cabinet that I think all goat owners should have at all times. There are, of course, more. I have a cabinet full of supplies, but these are the top 10. So if you're just getting started, make sure you have all of these on hand. It will save you from an emergency trip out to Tractor Supply late at night when you come home to find a sick goat. That's it for today. See you next time.